Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video I'm going to discuss how YouTube has actually changed my photography, and not necessarily for the better. But before we get into the video, I'm just going to try taking a shot with this variable ND filter that Kent Faith have sent me to try out. I'm not reviewing it, this video is not about that, this video is all about YouTube, but I'm just intrigued to know whether I get sort of that typical X shape that you get with these sort of filters. But before we can discuss how YouTube has changed my photography, really what we need to do is go straight back to the start of my career. Because what happened effectively was right at the start of my photography career as such, like 24 years ago now, I was actually commissioned to write my first ever book. Now at the time, I really was cutting my teeth as a photographer. I'm not going to say I was a good photographer, I was just in the right places at the right time really. And I was lucky enough to find a publisher which was Gilder Master Craftsman, who actually liked what I did and had faith in me to produce a whole book, and that was Photographing Wilderness. So from that point, for really the next 10 years, I worked on books and ironically never photographed local scenes like I have here. Understandably, working on all these books did make me a better photographer, and I think what I did realise from a very early age in my career as such is that I'm very project driven, and it's how I work best. I need a sort of ultimate goal. I ended up actually writing 7 books for Hallsgrove, and unbelievably, even though they sold really well, I actually never received a penny. And that sort of knocked all thoughts of me writing only books out of the equation. So I needed to find something different. I needed to find different projects to experiment with. And obviously, one of those things was infrared. But I was never going to be happy just photographing random subjects in infrared, so true to form, I created myself another project, and this time I decided to photograph as many stone circles as possible throughout the British Isles, and this became the Legacy Project. Now for this project I did receive funding through Kickstarter and other platforms, which allowed me to travel from the top of the United Kingdom right down to the bottom. Now, keeping on the subject of funding, one thing that had been a staple income for me during all my early years as a photographer, right up until this point, was stock photography. And we're talking back in the days when I used to get really quite a good income from it. So, for example, I'd get £800 for a book cover or £1,000 for an advertising campaign, that sort of thing. So there was decent money coming in. So when the chance for me and the family to go travelling around the world for 7 months in 2019 arose, really I embraced it, because I could see it as still being sort of some income coming in and just a really good experience for me and the kids and the other half. So really it was a bit of a no-brainer, but me being me, I decided to set myself a mini project on the whole trip, and that was to basically upload a photo every day to Instagram, a fresh new photo just from my travels while we were on the road. Now this was a great way to motivate myself whilst on the road, because basically it meant that virtually every day I was taking photos and my photography was getting better for it. But it kept the interest fresh, and I'll be honest, it was hard work at times, but it was a lot of fun, and this is what I did for the second half of 2019 and for the first couple of months of 2020 until I returned home and then unfortunately completely burnt out. So I lost all desire to take any photos at all. So after a few months, really, I found myself in a place where I felt like I should be taking some photos, but I just really didn't want to. So what I decided to do was pick myself up a really old film camera and just go out for the sake of taking photos using a film camera. It took away all those pressure of digital shots and feeling like I have to take really good photos and produce my best work. I just purely went out for the fun of taking images. And then I decided to start doing this.
Why does everybody hate the Panasonic Lumix G100? Is it really that bad?
So my YouTube journey had begun. Now I had dabbled a bit before this, we've done a few videos here and there, but I think when I actually bought myself a dedicated vlogging camera, which of course was a Panasonic G100, I think that really does mark the point where I start to take things a little bit more seriously. Now, whilst I had been taking photos for my own pleasure or for projects I was working on, such as calendars and jigsaws, I did find it really hard to juggle combining the two together. And then I think what happened is I fell into the YouTube trap. So what do I actually mean by the YouTube trap? Well, I suppose for me what that was trying to chase views and subscribers. And in order to get these views and these subscribers, I started basically talking a lot about gear, which, if you consider the first words I ever said on a YouTube video,
Does gear really matter?
is a bit ironic, because I never wanted this channel to be about gear. But I talked about it quite a lot, and I reviewed different cameras and sort of different lenses and things like that. And yeah, it's succeeded in getting the views and getting a few subscribers. But from an artistic point of view, it's really totally unrewarding. So what I started to do was to sort of throw in other content where I actually went out and took photos, and I did try and marry up the two of me going out taking photos and combining it with videos and talking about what was happening and the actual trips and things like that. And the majority of them tanked. So basically I was left with three different options. Option one was just continue what I was doing, try to marry the two, hope that the views would build up over time, which was probably going to be a very tricky path to follow. The second option was basically to stop doing YouTube totally, which I did consider. And the third option was to try and educate more in my videos. So I'd offer a different value to the viewer as such. And to not really talk about gear in the same sort of way, but more talk about techniques. Techniques that can be applied to pretty much any sort of camera. Sort of come a bit more generic, but try and educate, try and do something just a little bit different. So keeping that in mind, I recorded this video.
Today I'm going to discuss how using one flashlight you can take your image from looking like this to this.
Now that video, thanks in part to being featured by Fstoppers.com, to whom I will be eternally grateful, really did change everything for me. And it was at that point I decided that YouTube was going to become, yes, you guessed it, my next big project. So really, the way I now approach YouTube is that every video I do, and I do try and do a video every week, even though that is hard at times, but every video I do is effectively a mini project. And that's why you will see me talking about different things almost in a sort of project way of thinking, because it's how I approach these videos. However, my photography has undoubtedly changed, because now, because I'm being driven by doing all these mini projects, I'm not so much going out and just taking photos for myself. I'm always keeping in my mind that, can I build some sort of video around this? Am I going to be educating something to somebody? And I'm getting a lot of pleasure from it. And for me, whilst it has changed my photography, I no longer sit around on the top of hills for 2 or 3 hours waiting for the sun to break, because, to be quite honest, it's not very interesting for somebody to watch. What I'm kind of doing instead is trying to think of different techniques that I could do. So you've seen me trying ICM, you've seen me doing lots of sort of close-up stuff, you've seen me doing black and white, you have seen some more traditional landscape stuff, but I don't do as much of that now. Now, that's not to say that I'm still going on a big trip and do a YouTube video about it, but I just resign myself to the fact that if I do those sort of videos, I'm probably not going to get many views. But it's fine, because I do those for myself. And the other videos I do to sort of teach you guys something, and that's the whole idea. So it's definitely changed the way I approach my photography. Now, it's good. In some ways, I think it's detrimental, because I don't go out necessarily just shooting for myself, but in other ways it's really good, because I'm experimenting, I'm learning new techniques. You know, up until 12 months ago, I wouldn't dream of taking landscape shots without a tripod. But then I did a video about taking landscape shots without a tripod, and lo and behold, now I do quite a lot of handheld stuff. So I'm learning in the process. So whilst my traditional landscape photography has undoubtedly changed, I think overall me as a photographer has changed for the better. Now, of course, in some of my videos I am still talking about gear, and I think really the realities of being a photographer nowadays is that gear does play a part. I wouldn't say it's the whole be-all and end-all of it, but it does play a big part of it. What I would say is I don't want to be part of the machine of trying to keep promoting stuff to you and trying to sell you new cameras, because I think photography should be accessible to everybody, regardless of how much money you can spend on gear. So generally, if I talk about gear nowadays, I'm talking about old stuff. And a lot of the time I will go out with an old camera simply because I enjoy the process of going out with an old camera and seeing that it's still possible to take good photos with what was cutting edge gear 10 years ago, but now is classed as obsolete. So I think the whole reason why I made this video was really to not only let you know how it's actually changed my own photography on a personal level, but also to just let any other photographer out there who's thinking about starting a YouTube channel, to let you know that basically you probably will need to change the way you work as a photographer. But I would say for me, it's been a great journey. It's been a great learning curve. I'm still learning. I'm still getting things wrong, like music. I'm quite often told that my music's too loud or basically a bit disconcerting, so I've got to really work on that. But I'm learning. It's a whole learning process. And I think that's why I'm enjoying it so much. So anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. It has been a bit different, but if you have, give it a thumbs up. Of course, maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you again next week for another one. Thanks for watching.